Hi, everybody. Welcome. So I wanted to give everyone a chance to log on. It seems like we have a good critical mass and we are going to get started. So for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Dr. Saliha Afridi. I am a clinical psychologist and the managing director of the LightHouse Arabia. And today we are talking about self-compassion and how do we cultivate self-compassion and why is it important for us to have self-compassion? It sounds like such a soft, fluffy thing and maybe something that, only other people need, and I don't necessarily need this. But I'm here to tell you that the world would be a better place and you would be a happier person. You would be in a more of a state of wellness and openness and flow if you were to cultivate self-compassion. So I'm going to share a screen with you now. All right, here we are. This call is being recorded, not for quality assurance purposes, but it's being recorded because we will send you the link. No one can see your name, no one can see your questions. The only thing you will see is me and the slides. So please feel free to ask your questions in the Q&A box, and I will make sure I get to it at the end. If you have to drop off the call at any point and you have a question that is burning that I didn't get to answer, I am on LinkedIn and I am on Instagram, and I'm quite active on both. So feel free to ask your questions there and I would be happy to respond. All right, let's get started. So for those of you who don't know about the Lighthouse, we are a mental health and wellness practice in Sukim, Dubai. We've been around for 10 years. We are one of the largest mental health and wellness practices in the region, with over 30 clinicians working in psychology, psychiatry, occupational therapy, speech and language therapy. We work with the education sector, the government sector, and the corporate sector. So we do wellness talks and we do trainings, including mental health first aid, for which the Lighthouse is the only licensed provider in the UAE. One of the things that makes us super special is the fact that everyone that works at the Lighthouse is obligated by terms of their employment at the Lighthouse to give back to the community in some way. And so whether it's through talks, whether it's through leading a support group, whether it's through writing articles, we are all contributing to the community. And so one of the things is that we are probably one of the largest houses of psychologist-led support groups in the world, with over about 25 groups that are running at the moment and more coming. So it really makes us a social enterprise to the core of our, to the essence of who we are. So I really encourage you guys to go on our website. If you are on Instagram, you can follow me. I post a lot, and you can also follow the Lighthouse when it comes to learning about some of the programs that we have. Okay, so let's talk about what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about why self-compassion. Why now? Why am I talking about this now? Why have I not talked about this earlier? The benefits of what gets in the way of us being self-compassionate. What is self-compassion 101? And I'm talking about Kirsten Neff's research here. And then how to cultivate self-compassion in our life. Okay. If we have time, we might practice. If not, I will give you a link to where you can go practice. All right. So we are in a vaca world. This is a trendy term in management, spheres, corporate spheres: volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Okay, this is the world that we are living in now. Volatility means that we actually we don't know. Things are so unstable. We don't know with a war in one part of the world, or a crisis in another part of the world, or a disaster in another part of the world, because we are so interconnected, that the ripple effects of those will not touch us in some way. We also don't know that, the situations are so complex because of that interconnection, that, things are impacting each other in a very, very like by the minute kind of way, where one night we go to sleep, the next day the world could look very different. And we all know that, especially from things that have happened, like COVID and shutdowns and lockdowns and all of these other things. There's also this kind of ambiguity, which is that we actually don't know what we don't know, right? Things are so unprecedented, which I really don't like this word anymore, but there are no precedents for the things that we are encountering, because we've never been in a world like this. So we literally are mapping the way into the future, and we're sort of one step at a time, and that can evoke a lot of feelings of anxiety. And where there's anxiety, there might be a lot of criticism as well. And then obviously, with the cause and effects being completely unknown, we also are experiencing a lot of uncertainty. We don't know. If I do this, what will happen? If I do that, how many things will be impacted? So when we are in a state of flux and in a state of adjustment, you can expect that the inner critic is going to show up a lot more. The opposite of inner critic is self-compassion. And when we have self-compassion, it allows us to remain open, loving, curious, generous, creative to self and others. And that means we will be more resilient. And that's what we are looking for. We are looking to be more resilient in this vaca world. This word sounds totally weird to say. I ask you to say it out loud wherever you're sitting, but it's just a weird word to say. And yeah, I think all of us are closing down, we're scared, we're getting judgmental, we're othering the other, we are, this guy is the bad guy, we're the good guy, this country is the bad country, we are the good country. All of that comes when there is no self-compassion and there is a lot more fight or flight. That is our desire and need to control the situation rather than to understand or heal it, okay? And if we are self-compassionate, that also ripples out through our interpersonal interactions, our family life, our personal, our professional life. So because we are in a state of flux, this is more needed than ever before. And what does criticism do when that inner critic kicks on, or that critical person shows up? It actually shuts off, it shuts us off to life. It shuts us off to connection. Emotional pain and judgment can prevent us from feeling safe and confident in progressing. It can also lead to things like anxiety and depression, anger, guilt, sadness, worthlessness. I should have, I could have, I must have, I didn't have to. All of this criticism can result in a lot of emotional pain, okay? And it can close us off to connecting with ourselves, and it turns on our threat system inside of us. And that threat system is that fight or flight system, which is the same thing as chronic stress inside of us. Now, stress and anxiety are different, but the internal reaction to stress or anxiety is the same. The same fight or flight, adrenaline, cortisol, and all these other hormones that kick into our body, same thing happens inside of us. So physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, we get shut off to life. What self-compassion does is it actually is linked to lower levels of perceived stress. And it increases our resilience in the face of stressful situations like the vaca world we are living in, which means that there will be less anxiety, depression, shame, and fear of failure. 1 out of 4 people will struggle with a mental health condition at some point in their life if they have not all done so already. I'm one of those 4. I have struggled with these things, right? And I think the more of this volatile, uncertain, ambiguous, volatile world that we live in, we are going to actually need more and more of this self-compassion, because it's going to counteract the fear and the anxiety and the shame and the sadness we feel, because we constantly feel like we're not good enough. We're constantly feeling like we're up against something that we just can't seem to get a grip of. I cannot tell you how many times I've heard that, God, I just want to get my bearings. I just want to feel like I've got some things in control, right? Where things are not so volatile and things are not so uncertain and things are not so complex and things are not so ambiguous. I just want things to feel manageable. Guys, we ain't living in that world anymore. And in order for us to make it in this new world, we are going to have to adjust and adapt super quickly, because the world is moving at lightning speed right now. And so is everyone in it. Not because it's good for us, but because we think we're machines and we're operating at machine pace rather than human pace or nature pace. And so what's happening inside of ourselves is our threat defense system has been kicked on. This is our fight or flight system. This is the cortisol, this is the adrenaline and other hormones that kick onto our body. And our heart rate is constantly in this moderate space. Low heart rate is a thing of the past, it seems. And it's just like we're all really struggling to feel like we're recovering. Right? We don't feel like we ever recover before the next crisis hits. Just when we think like, oh, things are going to be good now, we hear some other crisis happening, or we see some other trauma taking place in some part of the world, and we feel like, we have to adjust some new things, and now we have to deal with hybrid, or now we have to deal with, change management because our company just got bought out, or. This is what we're constantly dealing with. And so that self-criticism is constantly on. And so is our threat defense system. And what self-compassion does is it turns on our caregiving system, our rest and digest system. It actually increases hormones like oxytocin and opiates in our body, which are moderators of pain. So the endorphins and the happy chemicals are actually increased just with my thought alone. My thought alone can kick this on. If I tell you now to think of something that freaks you out or stresses you out, your heart rate is going to go up. And if I tell you to think of something that is calming and loving and gentle and soothing and comforting, your heart rate will go down. Just with the power of your thought, you are increasing and decreasing that heart rate, okay? So we want heart rate variability. We want to have low heart rate, and then we want to increase it sometimes when we're active, and then we want to decrease it. We don't want to be in this constant state of chronic high heart rate, because it puts too much stress on our physical system. And then we have diseases such as, diabetes and heart disease and obesity and insulin resistance, all of these things that are linked to increased heart rate. The number one indicator of heart disease is not whether you smoke or you're overweight or you're stressed. It's not whether you smoke or you're overweight. It's actually if you are stressed and if you have poor heart rate variability. If you have good heart rate variability, you are less likely to get heart disease than if you were to have this chronic state of high blood pressure and constant feel like, these heart palpitations. And a lot of us are feeling like that. And I really, really do my best to ground myself every day. But just the energy of the world that we're living in right now is this kind of high strung, high stress kind of place. So this is why it's going to be so, so important for you to have self-compassion. We recognize that we have our own suffering. We don't condemn ourselves for our mistakes and our failures. We let go of unrealistic expectations. We kind of go with the flow of things. We're easy on ourselves the way we would be easy on a kid. If a kid is on a bike and they've never seen a bike, he's never been on a bike, and he falls off the bike the first 100 times, we would be like, it's okay, honey. This is what you're doing. I'm so proud of you for showing up. And I'm so proud of you trying to tackle this on. But what do we do to ourselves during these unprecedented times? Why can't I get it together? Why does everybody's life look so good and mine look so bad? How does everyone look like they have it together and I don't? Unrealistic expectations, thanks to all the social media and all of the filtering and the curating that we do on there. So everybody looks like they're all put together all the time and no one is really showing their devastating moments, right? We avoid these destructive patterns of fear, negativity, isolation. And then what happens is when we are self-compassionate, we are emotionally more resilient, and automatically, without me trying to be, I am more optimistic. I'm just more in a positive state of mind, okay? We notice what is right more than what is wrong. What is happening now is that, James Hillman said that the symptom of the loss of soul is the loss of a sense of beauty. The symptom of a loss of soul is the loss of a sense of beauty. Oh, am I frozen, guys? Can you guys still see me? Yeah, okay. I was frozen for half a second there. Okay, so, and that's what we're disconnected to the beauty of things, including the beauty of ourselves. But if you want to see beauty in the world, and if you want to see beauty in people, it must start with you feeling good in yourself. Guys, if you are being attacked, right? If your nervous system feels like it's being attacked from the inside out, from the outside in, right? It's going to be in a threat. The threat defense system is going to be on. It's not going to feel secure or safe or alive or open. It's gonna feel like it needs to close off from the world. And when you close off from the world, you don't see the good in others either. You don't see the good in you. You don't see the good in the world, and you don't see the good in others. And this is where the disconnect gets darker and darker and darker, and we start to feel more and more hopeless. But if we start to have more self-compassion and more love, almost as a prescription that we write to ourselves, then we are more open to seeing the beauty in others as well. So what gets in the way of self-compassion? Well, the first thing is which is the inner critic, the harsh inner voice that we've just internalized from a very early age. I can't do it. I'm not worthy. I must be perfect. Nobody loves me. Nobody's there for me. I'm not supported. I'm not good enough. I can't make mistakes. I can't afford to make mistakes. These things, it's really, really present. If you ask a fish, so how's the water? The fish is going to say, what water? It doesn't know, because it is one with the water. It doesn't actually even know that it is in water. We are so fused with our inner critic that we don't actually even know that it's there. And so the next time you make a mistake, or the next time you look in the mirror, or the next time you do something that you made a mistake about, listen and see what you hear. Okay? Of course, there's early life experiences, critical parents, critical teachers, and then cultural expectations that we have, which is social media. Guys, like, we don't know what anyone looks like anymore. Everybody is filtered. Everybody has, a perfect life. We actually don't know what is real and what is not. And what we end up doing, thanks to us being social animals / beings, what we end up doing is we compare our life, which is full of fault and full of sadness and happiness, but also sadness, and ups and downs and fights with our kids and fights with our friends and all of the stuff that we see. And then we compare it to someone's perfect life. We compare it to their perfect events and their perfect dinners and their perfect family nights and they're perfect and they're perfect. And that is what actually makes this inner critic even louder. Okay. So this inner critic has, I'm not good enough, I'm not doing enough, I can't do anything right, I feel stuck. And it's so hard. And I know you guys are like, well, there's so many things that people say, like, oh, like silence your inner critic or get rid of this or get rid of that. I'm not going to tell you that. I'm actually not going to tell you to get rid of your inner critic, because if someone told me to get rid of my inner critic, I'd probably be like, that inner critic got me to excellence. It makes me look at the details of my practice. It makes me look at the details of my life, and I want excellence in that space. If it wasn't for that inner critic, then I wouldn't be who I am today. I wouldn't be. So I'm not going to tell you to get rid of your inner critic. But we do have these beliefs that if I have to be hard on myself in order to change something I don't like, that if I go easy on myself, then maybe I'll relax and I'll amount to nothing. And I have to shame myself into behaving, right? We think that. The inner critic serves a very valuable purpose, which is that it keeps us in line, it keeps us in check, it keeps us performing at our best. However, the inner critic does not have to be so mean. And that's what I'm going to talk to you guys about, is that how do we transform the inner critic into being the inner guide? There are lots of people, and inner criticism is very much linked to inner forgiveness. And if I tell people, oh, forgiveness and forgive others, they're like, oh, forgiving others, no problem. I can't forgive myself. That's the hardest one for me. And that I think if I forgive myself, that I'm letting myself off the hook, and I'm not letting myself off the hook, because if I let myself off the hook, then I'll end up doing it again. That I don't deserve forgiveness, I deserve to be punished. You see how some of these cultural messages and some of these religious messages that we have warped in our minds and internalized in ourselves, that we deserve to be punished. And that criticism and that lack of forgiveness is equal to lack of self-compassion. Because I cannot undo my wrongs, I deserve to be forever in this purgatory of punishment, that I will hold myself to this very harsh, heat that I put myself under. So what is self-compassion? What is self-compassion? Let's see. Self-compassion consists of 3 parts, and this is coming from Kristen Neff's work. Self-kindness versus self-judgment, a common humanity versus isolation, and mindfulness versus over-identification. Okay? This is not about self-pity. People are like, oh, well, I don't want to feel sorry for myself, and what's the point? Like, it's not. Self-compassion is not self-indulgent. If I say, you know what, you've had a really hard day, I want you to be compassionate with yourself. I'm not saying now order yourself, 3 large pizzas and have chocolate ice cream. No, that is self-indulging. Self-compassion is, can you speak to yourself in a tone that is kind, that you would to a young kid who came to you, or a friend who came to you and was suffering? Self-compassion is also not self-esteem. Okay? Self-esteem is different from self-compassion. Other implications of self-compassion is that without self-compassion, you can engage in unhealthy relationship patterns. How you treat yourself will determine how you let others treat you, or whether you seek external validations, or whether you hold other people to impossible standards. So when you are compassionate and kind, you also are going to be kinder to the people in your life. You also are going to forgive others when they make a mistake. You also are not going to constantly be saying, tell me I'm good. Tell me I'm okay. Tell me I'm lovable. One of my clients that I worked with, the more self-compassion he showed, and I remember him saying, I love myself. And I've never loved myself. And what does that mean? What does that feel like? That I deeply accept my faults. And once I accept my faults, I'm no longer looking to other people to say, you are good enough. We take a huge burden off of our relationships when we start to accept ourselves and show compassion for ourselves. A huge burden is lifted off of them because we're kinder to them. We're not holding them to these impossible standards of perfection, but we're also not asking them to make us feel better when we make mistakes. Have you made a mistake and then you told your friend about it really quickly that, oh my God, I can't believe I said that. And then she tells you, oh, it's okay. It's no big deal. He'll forget. That is you asking for validation. You saying, soothe me, my threat defense system is on. And you would be able to do that for yourself if you had that self-compassion cultivated inside of you. But most of us don't have that. So how do we cultivate it? These are going to be the three components, okay? Self-kindness, mindfulness, and common humanity. You are going to have to cultivate all three of these. Mindfulness is about paying attention on purpose, non-judgmentally to the present moment. Mindfulness is about noticing without reacting, and it is a muscle only built through practice. What is mindfulness? Mindfulness meditation is a practice, and then mindful living comes from that. So you do have to sit down every day for at least 5 minutes, if not more, and focus on your breath. And when the thought comes, you focus on your breath. And when the thought comes, you bring it back to the breath. And then you'll say, oh, I'm noticing myself thinking again. Oh, I'm noticing myself thinking again. And some days it's going to be really hard because your mind is going 200 miles an hour. And some days it might not be as hard. At some times in your life, it's going to be harder. And at some times it's not going to be. You do not engage in a mindfulness meditation in the middle of a panic attack or anxious, high anxiety. That is not the time you want to be practicing mindfulness. Mindfulness meditation is something you do every single day at a time that you set for yourself. Okay? Mindfulness is about just paying attention to what shows up. Now, what happens as a result of that is that, as a result of that, you start to become more mindful when you are playing with your children, when you're listening to your colleague, when you're listening to your partner, when you are in nature, because the thoughts will come and then you'll bring it back to the present moment. Then the thought might come, but then you'll say, no, I really want to focus on this. It literally is building a muscle in the frontal lobe of your brain. Your gray matter increases in the frontal lobe of your brain when you practice this on a routine basis with discipline and devotion. That's what mindfulness is. So we want to cultivate our ability to be mindful with everything around us by building a muscle. I will ask you guys, who here remembers what they did yesterday? without thinking, without going through your, most people will not remember what they did yesterday because we're doing a lot, but we're not experiencing a lot. Our senses don't remember a lot. And so what happens as a result of that is that we are feeling more anxious. We are feeling more disconnected to the moment, to ourselves and to each other. And we are not mindful and we're not making memories. So that's what mindfulness is. It's a muscle like going to the gym. You will lift weights and then you will go lift a sofa. Mindfulness meditation is where you lift the weights and then you will be more mindful in the rest of your life and you will not be reactive. Okay, so when the thought comes of you being harsh, you will be able to notice it and then you will be able to bring it back to self-kindness. And self-kindness, guys, it's really quite simple. And I know this sounds pretty rudimentary stuff that I'm telling you guys here, but it's about showing up to yourself with love. And you might have to do a splitting off that there's an adult in you and there's a child in you. This is what we call in psychology parts work. There are different parts in me. And there's a part that can get super dark. And there's a part that can get mean. And it's like literally like on the verge of evil. And then there's a part that is loving. And there's a part that is wise. And there's a part that is vulnerable. And there's a part that is critical. There are parts to you. And there is a loving, compassionate adult in you. And we must cultivate that part. And when the inner critic shows up, you say, come on, honey, I think you're being a little bit hard on yourself. I literally will talk to myself that way. Like, I understand your motivation. You really are upset about this mistake that you made, but talking to yourself ain't gonna help this way. So how about you just tell me what you really want to do next time, or what should we do? Like, how can we soothe our nervous system at this time? This is how you would be talking to yourself. It feels super foreign in the beginning, but I promise you, the more you practice, it will get stronger. And the part of you that is compassionate adult, wise adult, will get stronger only if you practice it. And then the common humanity is that, listen, guys, find me a single person, even someone who seems so arrogant and so, I don't know, in control, I guess, as Elon Musk said he struggles with anxiety. Someone as big as The Rock, Dwayne, what's his name? The Rock said he struggled with anxiety. Like, we feel inadequate. We are afraid of failure. We feel we are not good enough. Every single person on this planet has a part of them that feels this way. Now, some people have done the work of healing and they've done the work. And so that part of them is not so loud. So if you come to me and say, Dr. Saliha, you know, you're being an idiot. Oh, like that will hurt because I am human, common humanity, but I'm not going to be like, oh my God, I'm an idiot. I really am an idiot. No, I'm not. I'm many things, but, and maybe there's a part of me that's an idiot that shows up every now and then, but I'm not an idiot. Maybe in that moment I was. So I know how to hold things lightly, and I know how to take feedback lightly, and I know how to look for the truth in myself lightly, because every single person is struggling with this. And that we are in times of vaca, and there's uncertainty, and the future is uncertain, and we're still figuring out what's happening with COVID. We're constantly changing. Like, every single one of us is going through this right now. Every single one of us. And that's the one thing that the global pandemic did, is that it reminded us of how we are all the same, and everyone was impacted. So how do you practice some of these things? Mindfulness, as I told you, you have to engage in meditative practices. These are some of the apps that I recommend. Calm or Headspace. Insight is a great app. Breathing, for anyone who follows me on Instagram, you will know that I'm really big on the breath, right? Focus on the breath. And I actually call it awareness training. You can even do something like a body scan. Google body scan guided meditation, and that is a meditative practice. You can Google, what's that called? Oh, I forget what it's called. Anyways, any guided meditation will actually take you through this, but there's also an app called Breathwork. So it teaches you breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. So you can just keep looking at that. Another meditative practice is if you have a watch that has a, second hand, a third hand kind of second ticker, or even on a clock, watch the ticker until a new thought shows up, and then you have to start over. And the goal is basically for you to complete that 1 minute without having a thought. Most of us can't do that. Most of us will not be able to do that, but that is a great exercise. So keep doing it for at least 5 minutes, and you can hold that milestone for yourself that I just want to go a minute without a thought intruding. And it might take you months, it might take you years, but book 5 minutes of just looking at the ticker and looking at the ticker, and then see how long you can actually go without thinking. It's actually one of my favorite meditations. It really shows you that our attention spans are really not very good. I wonder what, I wonder how, I wonder. So guys, if I can do it, anyone can do it. I have the most hyperactive mind, and I'm telling you, I have tasted bliss, and I have been to heaven, and I have experienced power. And it wasn't when I was, charged. It was when I was in deep surrender into the deep now. And if you want that deep surrender into that deep now, it is only going to come through these practices. You want to know what that bliss feels like? It's not going to be something you chase outside of you. It's something that you have to still yourself so much that it will show up at that point when it's that still. One quote that I love is that stillness is the altar of the spirit. Once you're still enough, your mind is still enough, you are able to see and connect with that spirit. And I think, when we talk about Star Wars, I'm a big Star Wars fan. For those who follow me on Instagram, they will know I am a Padawan in training to be a Jedi. And that's what force sensitivity is. It's really stilling yourself where you enter another realm of the force. And that every religion, every tradition will have something related to that. That's what mindfulness is. And that's why we want to do it. And what happens when we do these things? Everything changes. Because when you are in the flow of life, there is non-resistance, there is openness, there is love, there is compassion, there is kindness, there is absolutely no place for critical, like, we're not doing this. I am safe, I am good, I am doing the best I can. Yes, there will be people critical of me, but they're not the man in the arena. I am the man in the arena. And I will be good to myself. And I'm doing the best I can. And I'm doing the best I can. If I'm not doing the best I can, then do the best I can. That's it. Rather than this harsh stuff. There's mindful living that you guys can engage in, whether it's cooking or painting or sewing or doing puzzles. Puzzles can also actually be a very mindful activity. Chess is a very mindful activity. Again, what we're doing is we're trying to get singular about the experience. Whether you do yoga, whether you do stitching, but sometimes when people are stitching or what is that called? Oh my God, whatever, where there's yarn, crocheting or whatever it's called, they can almost move into a sort of, they drift off into their thoughts. This is really about being present. And that's why I really like puzzles, because you can't drift off. You've got to look at the piece, then you've got to find the piece. And you can't stop looking at the piece until you find the piece. So it actually trains us to be one-minded. And that's what we're trying to do, is take that fragmented mind and bring it into one mind. What does this have to do with self-compassion? Guys, when you become one-minded, you feel safe. When you feel safe, the compassion itself actually becomes a little bit easier to access. But also, when that harsh critic shows up, you're able to pick up on it because you know who you are and you know the difference between you and that critic. Because you can sense it, because that's what the observer self is. And when we have a good, strong observer self, we actually can say, not today, honey. We ain't going that way today. We're only here with kindness, or you can park it. You can literally have these conversations because there is you, and then there are the different parts of you. And that's what mindfulness cultivates, is that observer self and a focused mind that can then be differentiated from all these different parts. So it becomes easier. And then you can also start to journal. When it comes to mindfulness, what is your inner critic saying to you? You guys can take a picture of this slide. What are my core values right now? And don't talk about your core values unless you're practicing them. Go back to the last 7 days. What have you done in the last 7 days? Those are your values. If you are living according to your values. And if you are feeling anxious or you are feeling sad, then think about the values that you are denying or parts of you that you are betraying. Because anxiety and depression will actually show up as that. It will say something ain't right in the way you're doing things. So do more of this is what it's asking. Don't work as much as you are, or boundary some time for yourself. These are some of the things that anxiety and depression asks of us. Slow down. Don't go there. It's okay if you have FOMO, whatever, but you don't need this right now. This is what anxiety and depression asks of us. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? So instead of weaknesses, you can even say, what are my areas that I want to work on? How do I affirm my friends during hard times, right? When they come to me in difficult times, what do I say to them? And which one of these statements do I need to say to myself? Everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be fine. It doesn't feel very fine right now. It's really dark right now. You're not alone. I'm with you. I got you. You're not unsupported. You are supported. All of these things we say to people, we need to say to ourselves. It sounds really cheesy. I know, guys, like, oh, what's that going to do? It's going to do something. It's not going to do something right away. It's not going to do something a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. At some point, the tipping will happen. And all of a sudden, you will have the mature, wise adult inside of you, and you will not be so harsh anymore. So this is a practice. It's not a knowing. You do have to show up for yourself every day in this way. And eventually, I promise you, the filter will lift and you will see the world with kindness, and you will be in the world with kindness, because that's how you are inside of you. Everything outside of you is a reflection of what is inside of you as well. And when people ask me, you sit with, worries and trauma and sadness and all of that all day long, doesn't that affect you? No, it affects me. I mean, and it definitely affects me, but it's not bad. I see humanity, I see vulnerability, I see courage, I see heroism. This is what I see when I'm sitting with people. And that's because I've cultivated that relationship with myself. So I don't see problems. I see people confronting their problems. I don't see obstacles. I see people that are taking on those obstacles. So that's what it has taught me when I sit with people, whether it's CEOs or CFOs or my kids. I'm seeing that we're all in the same boat. And I think joining support groups and online forums and webinars like this, connecting with loved ones deeply, Not like this with you and me having a phone between us, but just saying, how are you really? How's it going? How are you feeling? How's all this like stuff that's happening in the news? What's that doing to you? How's that making you feel? And all of a sudden you realize you're like, wait a minute, I'm feeling the same. And so you're no longer alone. And then sharing your experiences with others, because that also shows that, oh my God, even you feel like that? I thought you had it all together. And so I find that a duty and an obligation where I go and I tell people I have a therapist that I see sometimes 3 hours a week, 4 hours a week. And, I've been through periods where I was highly, highly anxious, diagnosable, highly, depressed, diagnosable. I can say that I've gone through periods in my life where that has happened, because it is about me saying that we are all in it. Everyone is struggling. And that means there's nothing wrong with you, that you are not weird, or you're not like, there's not a weak character that you have, or it's not that you are not strong enough. You are strong enough and you are capable enough, and you will still struggle. Also, volunteering in places also teaches us about our common humanity, because it keeps us connected to our community. And sometimes when we're seeing all of these global crises, we just see crisis after crisis after crisis after crisis, and we don't see the goodness in the world. And when we go to volunteering organizations or donating, we see that we still can change the world, and you can change your world, and that softens you. And when you show compassion to someone else, you heal. Imagine that. When you show compassion to someone else, you end up healing, because you are releasing all of those happy chemicals in your body, like oxytocin and opiates, and that helps your nervous system. So that's going to be an important part of practicing self-compassion, is to practice the common humanity. Another way of practicing self-kindness is going to be drawing social media boundaries, befriending the inner critic. Man, why the drama, right? Why, like, you don't have to talk so harshly. I know I was a little kid and you needed to speak to me that harshly. I'm not a little kid anymore. I actually am a grown adult. I'm super committed. I don't need the harsh critic anymore. So either you show up as my guide, or I'm not going to listen. You don't have a seat at this table if you cannot be kind. This is literally how I will talk to my inner critic. Doing something once a day that makes you feel good. And it could be a backward bend, or laying on the floor on a yoga mat to feel the earth underneath you supporting you. It could be something that you say, you know what, I made a really big mistake and I forgive myself. And I need to reconcile that somehow. And I recognize that, and I know I am fallible, and I will apologize and that's it. I forgive myself. Supportive touch. Hand on your heart. This heart has a lot of neural networks. It has a brain of its own. And when you put your hand on your heart and you smile, and you send that smile to your heart, it will feel loved and it will feel safe. Meeting your physical needs is a way of being kind to yourself. We're running like machines. Guys, we're not machines. Drinking water, feeding yourself, but doing it with love. Not like, oh, I have to eat this and I have to be healthy so I can have a good liver and I can. No, I'm nourishing you, body, and I thank you. And I love you. And I'm going to give you good food. That sometimes we can get so technical about even our bodies and the way we feed our bodies, but to have a loving, kind relationship with food, connecting to what matters. These are the people in your life. And if today was your last day here on earth, who would you connect to? What would you connect to? That's what you need to be doing more of. Yes, we do have our day-to-day responsibilities and we do have to pay our bills, but that cannot be the 24 hours in our day. So connecting to what matters and say, I did something that mattered today to me. and it felt good to me, and I'm doing it for me and for the common humanity. Another way to befriend the inner critic, because that's something that most people have a very hard time with, turn the inner critic to the inner guide. Ask yourself, how did it come about? Right? It came about because it was trying to teach you something about life. That's when it came on really early. You don't need it. It can still talk kindly to you. It can still be there. It's still going to be looking out for the best, but it just has to speak to you in a little bit of a kinder, softer, gentler way. If you trigger the inner critic, recognize that it's there, speak in you versus I say statements to separate the inner critic from the voice of the self. So what do you want? How do you want it? What are you trying to tell me? Speak like this. If you yourself, so if I did a bad thing and I made a mistake, I will speak to you, or I will speak to the inner critic in you language. Dialogue with it and speak and ask it to speak to you kindly. If someone else triggers the inner critic in you, ask yourself, who is this person? You know, I get feedback all day long, left, right, and center. Being in the public eye, there's always going to be a critic. And I'm going to ask myself, does this person know me? Is this, is my reaction really exaggerated? Why is that? What wound are they triggering in me that I need to heal? Because I should be able to hold their feedback lightly if they don't know me at all. If they're judging me based off of a picture or based off of something I said on a 1-hour webinar, like, that's not the totality of who I am and my goodness in this world. So, but if I'm feeling that triggered, could there be some truth to what they said? What can I take responsibility for? So I am able to respond internally to make myself a better person. And what am I going to let go of? Because you know what? I hear you. This says more about you than it does about me. I don't need to say this to the person, but I'm just going to say that's their lens and that's their darkness. And I have compassion for them, because that must be a really sad world you live in, where there is so much hate and there is so much darkness that you have to attack someone that you don't know based off of one thing that you saw. So I feel sorry for you, actually, because I don't see that. When I see things, I see love, I see goodness, I see some mistakes, but I'm like, yeah, it's just a mistake. Like, I don't take it upon myself to become like a keyboard warrior. But there are some people who do that and their world is dark, and they must be like that with themselves. And that, I feel bad for them. I'm not going to be mean to them, because they're already being so mean to themselves. That's the conversation I'm going to have with myself. So if someone criticizes you and that gets triggered, have a conversation. If you trigger that, have a conversation. And this is all about building a different kind of relationship with your inner critic. You can take a picture of this slide. Things we say to ourselves: why aren't you doing better? Why are you making mistakes? You can't do anything right. Just get over it. You don't deserve to feel like this. I can't deal with this. Like, all of this stuff that we say, don't talk like this to yourself. You're doing the best you can. You are. And sometimes the best is like 50%. And other times the best is like, a little bit more, but like, man, I'm giving you all I got, right? And so that's it. And every day that's going to be different. I believe in you. And this must be really difficult for you. If you're going through a hard time, I'm here for you. You will say this to yourself. You will say this to the wounded, tired part of you. You will say this to the part that is hurting and that deserves compassion. What you're doing is enough. It may not be everything, but it's enough. You are enough. What you're doing is enough. It may not be enough for them, but it is enough. Some people, you can give and give and give and give and give and give and give, and it's still not enough. We cannot base our enoughness off of other people's reactions. Am I doing enough? Am I doing all that I can? Yes, I am. Okay, khalas. It may not be as someone else's, and we compare ourselves to other people. You know, working moms are comparing themselves to, you know, influencer moms, and influencer moms are comparing themselves to working moms, and people that are working are comparing themselves to people that are retired, and people that are retired are comparing themselves to people. Like, just know yourself and ask yourself, are you doing all that you can today while living a well-balanced life? Yes. Okay, that's it. And move on. And I will end with a quote, and I can take some questions. There's a quote. The curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change. And I will say, guys, that when we are when the inner critic is on, we actually, our learning centers are off. We cannot learn anything in fight or flight. And when you learn to accept yourself, the good, the bad, and oh my God, I hope no one ever finds out, in you, the next thing you know is that you change. It's the weirdest thing that happens. Love really does heal those wounds from which we act. And when we show ourselves that love and our kindness and gentleness and softness, all of a sudden, we're no longer angry, and we're no longer attacking, and we're no longer all the things we don't want to be. I'd be happy to take some questions right now. For those who have to drop off, like I said, I am on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn. This is LightHouse Arabia. We do all sorts of free support groups led by psychologists on here. Please go on there. If this was helpful for you, if this talk was good for you, I ask you that you please go and rate us on our website, actually not on our website, on our Google reviews, so more people come and join these talks that we do free of charge for the community. Like I said, it is a big, big agenda of ours to give to the community, to be part of the good in the world and to be part of the light. And so we just want more people to know about it. And so we ask that you go and rate us on Google. If you have nothing nice to say, don't say it. You can send me the feedback privately. But, you know, I'm just kidding. Give us your feedback. We'd be happy to hear it. All right. So I'm going to now take some questions. Let's see. Yes, you should be getting a link to this webinar. You should. I'll double check on that. So someone just asked me. We do mental health first aid courses. You can go on our website, go under events, and go under training, and you will find the schedule for all the mental health first aid courses. If you have a group of 25, we'd be happy to come to your company. But if you have just 1 or 2 people, you can just come to our community webinar, community trainings. It's a 10-hour course that you would go through, where you learn to do first aid for people that are in a mental health crisis. Okay. Yes, 100% share our monthly webinar calendars with everyone that you can, whether it's family, whether it's friends, whether it's people in other countries. These are online, and I love that they're online, even though I miss your energy when I'm around you guys. But anyone and everyone has access to these. All they have to do is go on our website and book it. It's free. It's for everybody. When you get the link, feel free to share it with everyone. A lot of these talks I even put on my YouTube channel, so it's always there as well. Someone said Balance is also a lovely app for meditation. They had a year free on the app during COVID, which is still valid and can be claimed, I believe. I will check it out. I usually listen to like music or bilateral beats, like the EMDR or a brain spotting bilateral. It just sort of puts me in a hypnotic state. How do you recognize the right situation to balance and be self-compassionate? Anytime there is criticism, there is room for compassion. When you feel hard on yourself, and my God, we are so hard on ourselves. I can't tell you, I'm an entrepreneur. I never went to business school. I'm making all kinds of mistakes, and I'm like 11 years in, and I'm still making mistakes. And oh my God, why did I make this mistake? And why did I make this mistake? Shh, you're doing the best you can. Looks like you need some courses on this. Go learn. That's it. So whenever you are doing something new, that's going to kick on. Whenever you're outside of your comfort zone, that's going to kick on. Oh my God. I started riding recently, horse riding. So about 2-3 years ago. And oh my God, my ankle is not doing my hip is not doing what it's supposed to. My jump is not like this. Oh my God, shh. You're doing the best you can. We're going to enjoy this. And we're going to keep working on it. But you just got on a horse for the first time in your 40s. Like, give yourself a break. This is how I will talk to my inner critic. That I know you're there and I know you want me to be at my best, but this isn't helpful. So say it nicely or don't say anything. So you will see me talking to myself when I make a mistake. And that's what another time that I really found my inner critic turned on was when we were doing yoga, when I was in a group class, and I'm looking at this person's pose and this person's warrior and this person's tree. And I'm like, oh my God, I am so bad. Watch yourself comparing yourself to other people. That's when the inner critic will turn on. And that's when you turn on that self-kindness. Kindness, kindness, kindness. And no, guys, I have worked with absolutely some of the most successful people, and they struggle. There is not a single person on this planet that I have met or encountered in my personal or my professional life that is not ashamed of something, that is not hurting about something, that is not insecure about something, that doesn't feel hard on themselves about something. Every single person, even the ones that seem like, oh my God, they look like they've got it all together. There is a part of them that doesn't. And there's a part of them that they wish never to show another person. So shame is in all of us. All of us. And guys, we cannot heal what we hold in judgment. We cannot heal what we hold in judgment. And when we are judging ourselves, we are attacking ourselves. And the rise in autoimmune diseases is because the system attacks itself. All of these autoimmune diseases that we see on the rise are the system attacking itself. Kindness, love, softness, gentleness with ourselves and each other. And if start somewhere, do a kind act and let it soften you. Do another kind act and let it soften you. And soon enough, you will start to be kind to yourself. So someone said that when you feel that you've reached a pretty good space, wishing yourself, but you see people you love most struggle and you're helpless, and the more you preach about how good life is, and not necessarily because your life is amazing, because you see the good in things. I hear what you're saying. I think anytime we're preaching, there's a disconnect. I think your life should be the example, not your words. And if you see the beauty in things, see the beauty in things. You know, I used to have a person that was in my life, and a friend, but we weren't friends when we started. And we would go into hotel lobbies, like we would go for tea or coffee or something like this. And I would be like, oh my God, look at the flowers and look at the scent and look at the sea and look at the tile. And they would be like, and it would look like I've never seen a hotel before. Okay. And And they would be like, oh my God, this girl needs to get out more. But of course, I've been to hotels and, I've been traveling my whole life because of my dad's job. But I just would be like, this is the first time I've ever seen anything this beautiful. And when you do that, they first look at you a little bit funny, and they might judge you a little bit funny. They might feel a little bit awkward within themselves. And eventually they became like me. Wow, look at the tree and look at the plant and look at the flower. I'm like, So I didn't say, gosh, look at this. I just experienced it. And my experience inspired them, not me telling them. You never inspire people by telling them be inspired. You inspire them because you are living that experience, and they're like, oh my God, what is she on? I want some of that. That's what we want. Okay. So this is, if you see the beauty in things, see the beauty in things, but don't just see it, feel it. Feel the beauty in things and be moved by the beauty in things and surrender to the beauty of things. Be in the experience of it all and just see what happens around you. People will move. They will be moved by you, not because you said something. So that's what I would say to that. Let's see, how to be compassionate when you are healing and feel agitated. Just focus on loving yourself and healing your nervous system. Turn off the noise, turn off the stimulation. Don't look at Instagrams and all of these things that are, like that's your nervous system feeling agitated. Give yourself a calm space. Make more calm. Make more calm. Make more calm around you until you come to a place where your system says, okay, and all of a sudden that fight or flight system will lift and you will see. Okay. So guys, I have to go now. If I didn't answer your question, please message me and I'd be happy to answer it there. If you guys are wondering more about healing and about developing this relationship with yourself, my Instagram and my IG lives that are on my account are full of this stuff. This is what I live. This is what I breathe. This is the journey I have been on, from being a very critical, self-critical, perfectionistic, type A, on the run. I'll never meditate, even if you make me. I don't care if it's my last breath. I will not take it in this way. This was me. And so I have come through the ring of fire to come to this place where I can talk about all of that and I can talk about all of this, and I get it. It's hard. It's so hard. And it requires more and more and more and more discipline as the world gets louder and louder and faster. It requires more devotion for us to show up for ourselves in this way. That's what I talk about on my Instagram. So you guys can just go take a look at that. And if you have any questions, message me. Thanks, guys, for being with me here today. I love talking about this stuff, as you can imagine. But if there's anything I didn't cover, message me. It'll be good for me to have that feedback. Please make sure you go and review us on Google. Thanks, guys. Bye.